And because they were asking me the questions and I was taking responsibility for my actions, I couldn't tell myself any lies. I couldn't like minimize, I couldn't make excuses.
What was that process like for you?
So that was like a very helpful process for me to be able to like truthfully look at myself and answer the questions from the people I'd harmed the most. And I didn't like my answers. My answers were because my mates rang me and told me that there was beef and I didn't actually know why. And then I'm telling a mother who's lost her son that I don't even know. There was no real reason why I punched her son. You know, and I was like, look at like, what am I even doing? Like, who am I trying to prove anything to?
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Life After Prison with Zak and Jules. Today's episode, we are joined on the sofa by Jacob Dunne. At 19, he was sentenced to prison for manslaughter after a one-punch attack that took a man's life. What followed is a remarkable story of transformation. After meeting the parents of his victim through restorative justice, Jacob went on to earn his first class honours degree in criminology and has since worked across education, health, criminal justice, and the arts. He is also the co-founder of the Common Ground Justice Project, an initiative engaging voters, victims, and communities to build common ground for a safer, fairer justice system. His memoir, Right from Wrong, was recently adapted with his creative input into Punch, a critically acclaimed play heading to the West End and the Broadway, which is pretty big stuff, right? Welcome, Jacob, to the couch. How you feeling?
It's great. It's great to be here. I've been following you guys from a distance, so love what you do.
Appreciate it.
And it's good to kind of be here, be part of the community, and get stuck in.
No, I appreciate it, man.
It is great to have you on the sofas with us today.
And sorry for the long bio.
No, this is good.
No.
We actually prefer doing the bios like this now to give people a little bit of an understanding of who's joining us. Also, everything there was needed. I could have taken stuff out.
No.
Which I didn't.
Full context. Definitely full
context.
context. Yeah, makes sense.
But other things include our proud dad and, family member and human being. Good human being is what I strive to be anyway.
I like that. Talk to us about the book. We've mentioned it earlier. So Right from Wrong. How did the book come about?
Well, that's a mad story, to be fair. This book came about.
Yeah.
I did I see you guys got an Arius Award, right? You got an Arius Award?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
So have you?
We're in the same So the book came about from a podcast series that I did for Radio 4 called The Punch, which got Best Factual Series in 2021. And off the back of that, I just had people coming at me saying, we want to turn your life into a movie, we want to turn your life into a TV drama, a play, and all these other things. I was just like, I didn't even know what to do. I was just on the phone to different people, like, I don't even know what to do. And then I was advised to get an agent, and because up until that point I was a campaigner, and I still am a campaigner.
Yeah.
I want to share my story, or have been sharing my story, and still share my story to try and prevent violence, to try and promote restorative justice, and to do what you guys do, which is kind of like spread a different narrative and give people the motivation to perhaps consider making different choices. And then I realized, or was given the advice, that once you share your story publicly, you can people can adapt your story, turn it into things without your permission. And I need to protect my story from being hijacked by editors, media people, you know what I mean? Like everyone that wanted to exploit me, I want to keep control of my own narrative. So the best way of doing that was trying to develop some intellectual property. And the best way to have some intellectual property is to write a book. So then that was the stage. Then it was like, okay, I need to try and find a publisher, get an agent. And it was during lockdown as well. So it was like a good time to like start writing.
Okay.
Something I always wanted to do, but was just something I could never commit the time to and focus and structure. But then all the stars aligned and I kind of was like, not forced into writing a book, but that was That's the honest reason as to why it came about.
So how does the book go then from, so it's gone from radio to book and then to play. How does it go from book to play? What's that transition like?
Yeah, so the play took from start to finish about 4 years before we got it in front of an audience.
Okay.
When was the book published?
The book was published 2021, and then the paperback was 2022. So this conversation started around the same time as I was writing the book.
Okay.
And the artistic director, and shout out to Nottingham Playhouse, because
that's where it all began.
That's where it all began, the play, right? And I'm from Nottingham. He was the artistic director, and the only play or theatre show I'd ever been to see was when my mum took me to see the pantomime.
Okay.
As a kid, right? And it was just like, jokes and that. And then I hadn't been since. So then this artistic director is like, oh, I'm the artistic director at Nottingham Playhouse. Would you consider turning your book into a play? I was like, what does that even look like, right? I've not even been to a show in about 10 years, right? So he was like, oh, well, there's some like good writers in Nottingham, right? Which I think would make sense because it's a Nottingham story at the Nottingham Theatre working with a Nottingham writer to adapt it to stage. So I was like, well, that sounds good. He said, well, there's this guy called James Graham. I don't know if you've heard of him. Thinking I was going to know who he was, right? And I was like, I don't know who any kind of writer is, right? And
you must have felt like so out of your depth.
I was just so out of my depth, right? And I was just like, oh, I'll go and like Google him. And then he's writing like West End shows and Broadway shows, and he's writing TV dramas about Margaret Thatcher and Rupert Murdoch's and all these big historical characters, right? And I was like, how is he going to want to write about me, right?
So let's say your input is to make sure that it still stays authentic. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was a big part for him all the way along. It's like, he knows how to form a play. He knows how to make the audience laugh. He knows whether he should have 6 cast members or 1 cast member to tell that story. Or, he knows how to take the audience on a journey. And I'm the master of my own story. I've told it many, many times into lots of different audiences, whether it's social workers, whether it's young people in school, whether it's ministers, whoever it is. And so together we were able to he got the form and the shape and the characters and the best way he thought to deliver this play. And then once he got that first draft, or like a solid draft together, we then started working together collaboratively on kind of what dialect to use, different scenes, how different characters can interact with each other, all the more nuanced stuff. And what he's great at is just like, because it is a heavy play about a serious story, but it's also funny as well. Because as you know, like you talk about people who've been in prison, you talk about people who've been through a lot of trauma, but you always find humor.
There's moments of that you can.
There's always like moments where you're like, how did we find humor in like such a dark place? And I think that's something that he's really good at doing, is giving the audience a breather where they need it and weaving in kind of. So that's, he's a genius. And so I'm glad I got to know him, and that he felt that he took on the story and is now able to present it to much more people, and we're able to continue the conversation. Yeah,
because now the play's heading to the West End, right?
Yeah,
and Broadway.
That's massive.
Yeah, and in these times of populism and more divide and more hate, hopefully this is a story that's needed in terms of like, if we, we'll get into like what happened in that, but if we can put our differences aside and repair the harm in my story, then there's nothing stopping anybody else from like seeing someone with different political views differently, or not holding a grudge against a neighbour for not keeping the bin out. Do you know what I mean? Like
something that's so minor.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. But let's get into the story then.
Yeah.
Talk to us about the build up to the circumstances and then the lead up to actually the day in question.
The lead up to the circumstances. So what we're looking at, 2011 is around the lead up to those circumstances. So I was what you'd call now like someone that's neat, not in education, employment or training. And I had no qualifications, really low self-esteem, but you wouldn't know that I had low self-esteem.
Outwardly, you would.
Outwardly, everyone's like, oh yeah, this guy's like super confident. But it was all bravado, right? Because deep down I was like, I don't even know where I fit in, other than in the ends, in my postcode. So, and in that environment, in that group where I felt belonging.
Yeah.
And so I just do stupid stuff, like always, like the core belief that I had was that, and I have this conversation with endless youth now, it's like, you've always got to have your mates back. And they're like, yeah, of course, like, you know, not, of course you got to have your mates
Unwritten
back.
rule.
Unwritten rule, right? And same as like snitching, which are two big parts of my story, right? So you can never snitch. That was another subscribed view.
Unwritten rule.
Unwritten rule, right? And the thing is, I didn't necessarily consciously choose those rules. They were kind of like just subtly given to me, right? And so I'm on a night out. It's my mate's 18th. I'm 19. I'm in a big group of us, and I get a phone call from my mate. I got separated. I was with some girls. They were in another bar, and got a call. Oh, Jacob's kicking off. Obviously, me being the person I was back then, I'm like, where are you? Like, I'm on job. I'm going to come see what's what. Went down. Didn't ask no questions. I just saw my friend squaring off with another person. And, ran in. No questions asked. Throw a punch. And then ran away. Didn't think anything of it.
Yeah.
Until a month later, when police were kicking off everyone's door, and the words of murder were being banged around. So, like...
How long later?
A month later. So I was just going about my business. Like, I just thought it's another fight. We were getting into fights all the time. I was coming home, black eyes, bottled, you know, whatever else. Because for me, it wasn't like really like proper like gang. There was a lot of gang stuff going on in terms of like other postcodes. But for me, for my specific peer group, that night, it was always just like going out, being bored, you know, and just like at the end of the night, loitering around and just bumping into other groups of lads who
and when the trouble starts.
Too much to drink, and that's when the trouble starts.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I was addicted to drama. I was addicted to drama like for my whole teenage life, because there was a void. It was like, I don't know what, like, with my ADHD, you know, all the rest of it. I was like addicted to drama. I was like always getting chased, or I was always wanting to like have something kicking off. So going out on nights out was just a perfect way to kind of continue feeding that need for drama.
Talk to me about that moment when you get arrested for murder. What you're feeling, what's going through your mind. Talk us through that moment.
Well, the thing is, I'd been alerted by a friend, my friend's dad, because he'd also been arrested.
Okay.
So I kind of had a sense of what he'd been arrested for. And then I went and handed myself into the police station because I'd left my mum's house thinking the police were coming for me. I didn't know what had really happened. There was just suspicion of murder. I was like, well, how can I have done anything for murder? Like, I've not done anything, right?
Did you think, when you were hearing murder, did you think that that part was anything to do with you?
Well, I had a friend, right, whose 18th birthday was, who rang me to come and back him, even though he didn't need backing. That's the thing I always try to make the point of, like, there was no
need
drama. Or there was no need to try and defend my friend. And if anything, I should have just pulled my mate away and gone, allow it. Like, what's the point?
In retrospect.
Yeah, in retrospect, right. Which, you know.
Hindsight's a wonderful thing, of course.
Right. And he'd called me on the morning saying, police have raided my house. He was the only one out of all of us that had a job, right? So he wasn't in the house when the police raided him, right? So then he's called me and gone, I think it's something to do with that night when you punched that guy. I was like, what are you on about? That was like a month ago.
I'm not putting
the things together.
You're not putting the fight.
No. And especially when like there's people in my area, in my group, who are like more active in terms of violence and more likely to be wanted by the police. Right? I didn't even have a criminal record. So there's this suspicion going on. Someone's been charged with murder, and then I'm like, well, the police, they're not going to be coming for me. It can't be for me. And then my mum's landline number rings, and I'm like, oh, it's my mum. Pick up the phone, it's the police, and they're in my mum's house, and they're saying, come and hand yourself in, nothing to worry about. I know there's something to worry about, but I just go hand myself in anyway. I'm not some successful criminal. I can't go on a run. Like, I'm 19, no job, you know, little money to my name. So I go and hand myself in, and then, yeah, that's when they tell me you're being arrested for the murder of, and his name is James Hodgkinson, and the play and the production and all of the work that I do is dedicated to him, his family, and all other victims of violence. And I was just in shock. Do you know when you're just like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like, it's just like being in shock. You know, like in the movies where like the sound all goes like blurry and that, and you're just like, nothing's like, and everything's in slow motion.
You've heard those words and that's it.
You're just like,
yeah.
And you're just like, the next thing you know, you're in a cell, custody cell, and I'm just like sinking into the floor and thinking, like, what have I done? Like, how is this true? This can't be true. How am I going to tell my mum? Do you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, all these things start rushing through your head. Was I caught on CCTV? You know, are my mates snitching on me? Who else has been arrested? You know, did I actually do it? You know, and you just like, and then I started getting overwhelmed, panic. Started having a panic attack. And I was just like, oh my God, I've destroyed my life. And that was actually the first moment in my life as a 19-year-old man where I realized I actually had some sort of expectations and standards for my life. Where I was like, no, this isn't what I want. I don't want to be going to prison.
It's a shame that it's always at them kind of moments, isn't it, when we think like that. So then from there, you end up going to prison.
Did what happened sink in by that point?
By this point, I'm just like in denial. Like when people ask me, here's the thing. When I first went to Glen Parva, there was a personal officer, and his job was to do some sort of victim awareness stuff, right? So he's sat me down in this room, and he's gone. He's printed off all the newspaper articles, right, of my mugshot and Daily Mail and that, right? And he's like, murderer, thug, yeah, all these like statements on these headlines. And he's like, look at this. This is what everyone thinks of you. This is what you are. This is what he's saying to me. And I'm like, sat there looking at him like, who do you think who are you? And then he's like, look at these comment section. Oh, you ain't got, you know, anywhere near as long as you should. You should be dead. You should be rotting in prison. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, they actually showed you this?
Yeah, just show me all this, right? And I'm like, now I teach people about how to deal with shame, right? But I didn't know this at the time. Like that, my shame was being triggered, right? I was feeling shameful. But the thing is, people don't know how to express shame. Because the ways that people express shame is either to attack others, to run away. You can't run away in prison. Attack others, withdrawal, which is hard to do, or avoidance. And avoidance comes under drug addiction, and for anything, self-harm, all that, it comes under avoidance, right? So I've got two options, attack or avoid, right? And I'm just like, I just told him to F off, to be polite about it. And then he's like, yeah, you've got no remorse. You don't care about your people. And it's like, you just don't understand how to have conversations about things that people feel shameful and bad about in a way that can help them access how they feel and process that in a healthier way. Now, in hindsight, I probably wasn't ready to have that conversation at all. And because I'm in denial about it. I'm like,
so in prison, how long were you in denial for? Did you spend the whole of your sentence like that? Or
I spent the whole of my sentence like that and getting worse. So getting more normalised to violence. All of my views that were getting me in trouble in the past were being reinforced by my peers. I was in more and more denial about what had happened, and I was making more and more excuses for why what happened. So I was snitched on by a friend, which I don't even like saying now because he just told the truth, right? So, and what I used to do is go around to the prison going, oh, I got snitched on, right? And everyone else in there would go, no, I can't believe that. As if, like, you know, no, I'd never have that. When I got out, when I got out, I'll be on job, I'll be taking man out and all this. I'm like, yeah. Like, I'm a victim. Like, people were trying to, like, tell me that I'm a victim of my own circumstances. And that wasn't helpful.
It's a false narrative.
So that false narrative. So I was just like, yeah, it's everybody else's fault why I'm here. I'm just unlucky. You know, then I got calls from, like, my mom who's like, you know, losing a house and becoming an alcoholic and like other family issues on the outside. I'm like, this is all everybody else's fault, right? So I'm just getting more angry, you know, and all that stuff that I've been describing is just like compounding and getting worse, right? And I'm less likely to take accountability, and I'm getting more angry. And then, but the other thing that I mentioned earlier is I'm feeling more shameful. I'm less comfortable knowing how to express myself or understand how I feel, and I don't trust anyone. So, like, in terms of, you know, engaging in education, reintegrating into the community, or
you're not even nowhere near ready.
Nowhere near. In fact, I say this often: I came out worse than when I went in.
So what was it like for you getting out? How was that for you, and what was that adjusting like?
So yeah, I came out, no fixed address. I was still in the shoes that I went into court in, right? So I had holes in my shoes, like when we used to go walking around exercise yard or on movement. If there was any puddles, right, I'd be like trying to dodge them, right, because I could be getting wet feet. Because I didn't have no money being sent in or anything. And then I was just trying to, yeah, with tobacco back then when we was in there. So I was trying to just survive on that. But
survive on burn
and flip and burn, right? So when I got out, I had a couple of friends. They came and met me. They all rounded up around the estate and like bought me some clothes, you know, bought me some new trainers. And I'm feeling like loved, right? And even though I'm just like, how superficial was that? Like, yes, Jacob's back about. Do you know what I mean? Like, as I got closer to the time, and then what I started to realise that people were fearing me. People were like, "Oh, Jacob's like, what's he gonna be like? You know, he's come out, he's bigger." You know what I mean? I lost weight now, but because I'm just too busy being a dad and running around the country, right? But it's just like I come out bigger, I come out more kind of imposing and unhealthy mindset, and I liked it. I was like, and it was New Year's Eve, so we was out, went for all you can eat Chinese, went to my probation office, had no fixed address. They were trying to get me into a hostel, and then I was just sofa surfing at friends' houses for a while. I got my £47 or whatever it was. Discharged.
That's gone in a day, man.
Yeah. You know, I couldn't have even got a train home with that. And then was just back at it. And then I was thinking about the snitch. I was like, where is this guy? I was just like looking for him, and he'd like gone out of town. Because that's just my mindset. So I was just destined to go straight back in and be one of those statistics of someone that reoffends and causes more harm to myself and my community.
So what was it that stopped you then?
There were two things. One was like coming out and seeing like how my family deteriorated and the impact that and the stigma that they had. That's one thing that we don't often talk about is like, if your son's being talked about as a murderer, or, you know, all these other killer and all these other things that people were calling me, that has an impact, you know, on your own family. And she was a Ofsted registered childminder. She used to look after loads of kids in my local estate. Loving woman, loved everybody that she met, loved kids. And she used to say to me, she was the only person that used to say to me on the phone, do you ever think about your victim or their family? Because I can't stop thinking about it. And I'd be like, I can't cope with it, Mum. I can't do it, right? And then I came out and I just saw like the state that she was in, and my little brother was basically my mum's carer. And I was like, it just fucked up. But I didn't have the confidence or the motivation to want to actually, or know how to change, or have the self-belief to be able to change.
But you knew that something.
But I knew that like something had to change, right? And then I went to my probation office, and like 2 months out of prison now. And she said, "Oh, have you ever heard of restorative justice?" And I was like, "What's that?" And she said, "It's where people who have caused harm can meet the people and talk about the harm that's been caused and try and repair the harm with the victims. You find out some more information from a restorative justice practitioner, and you can make a decision. How does that sound?" And then I went back to my mum and was like, I know you talk about the mum and their family, but they've actually got in touch with me. And she was like, "You should do it." And then that was where my armor came down. Like, I didn't have the kind of, I didn't think I was going to change, but I thought like I could do a good thing.
Can you talk us through the process of actually meeting your victim's family and what that was like for you?
Yeah, so I went away and I was like, yes, I want to answer their questions. But they didn't want to meet me face to face and I didn't want to meet them face to face.
Okay.
So there's an option. Well, there's lots of ways you can do it. You can do it through letters, mediation, like shuttle mediation, and direct face to face conferences. So the practitioner, their job is to do like a risk and needs assessment as to kind of why everybody wants to do it, making sure they're doing it for the right reasons, and to make sure they're clear on what everybody needs from the process. So once they established that it was safe to continue bringing us together, I'd shown remorse, I'd taken accountability for what I'd done. I wasn't still making excuses that my friend snitched on me and, I shouldn't never have happened to me, none of that. Accepting on exactly my responsibility, they felt safe enough starting that process, and then they came to my probation office, and read out the questions that they had for me, and then they took those questions, my answers to their questions, back to them, and then that's how we started communicating.
Was it just written? Like
they were written it, then they read it out.
Okay.
But they would say, give me more detail, like, this is why they want this answering.
Okay.
And this is why this question is important for them.
Okay.
And then with my answer, they would then relay that back to them and go, he got really upset or was struggling. Here's what he said, but
and
try and give the context around it as well. Cool. Try and give them more of a bigger picture as to who I was and kind of how I was answering the questions. And some of them were trivial stuff like, had you ever done boxing or martial arts training? Because they couldn't understand how one punch could lead to that.
It's a fair question, though.
And they had questions like, why did you do it? And, why did you run away as soon as you did it? All these kind of like things that they didn't, have
all
any
the questions that are going through
all the questions that are going through the mind, right? And so I tried to answer all those questions as truthfully as I could. And because they were asking me the questions and I was taking responsibility for my actions, I couldn't tell myself any lies. Yeah. I couldn't minimize, I couldn't make excuses.
What was that process like for you?
So that was like a very helpful process for me to be able to truthfully look at myself and answer the questions from the people I'd harmed the most. And I didn't like my answers. My answers were because my mates rang me and told me that there was beef and I didn't actually know why. And then I'm telling a mother who's lost her son that I don't even know. There was no real reason why I punched her son, And so I was like, look at what am I even doing? Who am I trying to prove anything to?
So this was a process for you to actually fully understand what has just happened and who you are and what you want to do and where you want to go.
Why I was making the choices I did and taking full, really understanding that the choices I was making and the views and the values that I had weren't serving me.
Do you think more people would benefit from doing restorative justice?
I believe, lots of people would benefit from it.
If so, what does it actually take?
It takes now, I don't like using this word to describe myself, but it does take this. It takes courage, it takes humility, and it takes honesty, accountability, and a kind of need to do the right thing. If you can help somebody that you've hurt, then why would you not want to do that? And I get that we are hurt as well. People who have caused harm, hurt people, but that's not an excuse for continuing to hurt more people, whether it's yourself or anybody else. And if you can have a conversation with someone that you've hurt and try and resolve that and try and repair that harm, then you will feel better about yourself. Because we talked about shame earlier on. And not many people will even understand that they're carrying shame and that criminal label. Like people refer to themselves as ex-offenders or refer to themselves as, you see those labels and those narratives and those identities that they actually believe in. And that's all part of like the low self-esteem, the anger, the avoidance, the substance misuse. Like that's all some big layer. Like I've rewrote my book and my narrative now, but we're given our narratives, and having these types of conversations, I feel, helps you kind of break free from some of those narratives and start you on a journey of like you choosing the type of person that you want to be.
And of course, I'm sure it has helped the victim's family.
Of course, yeah. I didn't think I was actually going to gain anything from it. I was like, it's the least I can do. That's why I started off the process. But then as I got into it, I was like, actually, I'm learning just as much about myself as helping them. And then they started to, their needs were that they wanted to express the harm that was caused. Because our criminal justice system doesn't give victims a voice in the system. If you're lucky, you might get a victim impact statement read out in court. But other than that, they don't, offenders are hidden from the real harm that all their crimes cause to the community and the
in terms
victims,
of the effects,
in terms of the real effects.
Yeah.
And that's what I think perpetuates people's ability to continue causing harm, because you're never made aware of the actual real harm you cause. Never mind to your own family, but to the other people and your victims as well. So they say ignorance is bliss. But if you're ignorant of the harm that you're causing, then you can freely go on continuing to cause more harm because you're never aware of the harm you're causing. And so they were able to express the harm that was caused. They were able to hold me accountable. They were able to get their questions answered. So that's like three massive things that helps them reclaim their power in a way, in terms of feeling more heard, expressing their harm, having a voice. And there's lots of other things that can benefit victims. And I like to say offenders have the right to remain silent, but victims should have the right not to remain silent. They should. Our criminal justice system should empower them to have more of a voice and to get their needs met as well.
So how do you go from, or talk us through, starting restorative justice? It's just paper, things written, your responses. Then eventually gets to face-to-face.
Yeah, eventually it gets to face-to-face. Can I tell you when it went to face-to-face?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so we were speaking through mediation, not frequently, but I'd say like through mediation to begin with, those questions.
Yeah.
Back and forth, me answering their questions. And then they had more questions, like, what are you going to do with your life now, Jacob? That was the next big moment for me, because I was like, how can they care about what I'm going to do? I'm responsible for killing their son. I know I didn't mean to do it, but how can they have the compassion or even the curiosity to just even like care about what I'm going to do next?
I rate that though, because now, and this is how I'm thinking, they're like, look, we've lost our son. It's your fault. But what are you going to do with yourself?
Yeah, what are you going to do with yourself? And I was like,
how are you going to keep, what's my son's legacy?
Yeah. What is this all going to be in vain? Are you going to learn your lessons?
Correct.
Right. So that was like, well, then what that question made me do is it made me ask the question of what am I going to do? And it made me realize that I need to start looking at my needs, my mental health needs, my relational needs, my spiritual needs, my physical health needs, the whole thing, right? Because it's unmet needs. I would argue that it's unmet needs that are attributed to like most crime and harm in society, and it starts from early childhood, not getting your needs met. Right, and as you go older, you're not in loving relationships, you're not in healthy relationships, you don't feel like you got a purpose. Like all those unmet needs just cause havoc. So I was like, I need to start working on my needs. What do I need to do in order to like feel better about myself? And my goal was to be able to look in the mirror and be proud of myself. That was the goal that I set. So I was like, what the first thing is I need to go and do my GCSEs. So I said to David and Joe, I said, I'm going to go back and I'm going to do my GCSEs. That's what I'm going to do with myself. Obviously, I was like I couldn't even read, right? So I went to do my GCSEs it took me more time. We read the Great Gatsby book. That was the first job.
It's a serious book
right?
though.
It's a serious book, right?
Yeah.
It's also a West End show I just saw on the tube. But it took me more time to read that book. I spent more time Googling the meaning of words.
Wow.
Than actually reading fluently the book. That's how like poor my literacy skills were. And then, and I had dyslexia and ADHD. But the thing is, now I had this different mindset. Before I was like, I've got dyslexia, I've got ADHD. That's an excuse not to try. It was always about fixed mindset. Now I'm like, F that. You know, I'm not even making no excuses. Like I got my victim's mom's backing me. So, you know, I'm not giving up on myself that easy, right? So I was like, you know, learning to basically read and write, maths, and then I did psychology as well. Mm-hmm. Now, this is why I think that psychology or subjects like that should also be in the curriculum in secondary school. Because I'm in this mindset where I'm trying to change my mindset, but one of the subjects I'm studying is psychology and about mindset, about personality traits, about with the working memory, about, you know, how I think, right? The beliefs I have, where they've come from, narratives, identity, you know, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like now I'm studying a subject so I can actually start thinking like a social scientist. I can start like, so I was like evaluating myself as I'm learning these new subjects. And I said to David and Joan, I'll keep you updated as to how I'm getting on in education. And then I got an A star in English, I got A star in psychology, C in maths, best grades in Nottingham College. I was a 21, 22-year-old coming out of prison. Went and did my social access course, social sciences.
In order to go and do higher education.
To do higher education. And then I got a place at uni. And then I told them, I was like, I've got a place at uni. They were like, oh my gosh, like that's amazing. We're ready to meet you face to face.
Wow.
So 2 years.
It was at that point.
So 2.5 years of study. Then they were like, we're ready to meet you face to face. And I was like, whoa.
2.5 years of studying, but you're in regular.
But I was in like
intermediate
communication. Like I finished my GCSEs, I got some good grades, you know, and it would be mixed with other news. Like my mom's died and you know, other people, you know what I mean? Like all these other things. I'm like, but I'm still, you know, like you guys have helped me kickstart me on this journey. Like I'm going to keep going. And then we're just like having this on conversation and right back. Sorry to hear about that. Glad to hear you're still engaged in education. You know, keep going. It's just like
that's a lot.
If you got people, you got a person like that, like cheering you on. And then I became the guardian for my little brother because he was 15 at the time. So then he came and moved in with me into my little 1-bedroom flat, and we were both doing our GCSEs at the same time.
Oh, wow! Who was helping you more?
I think he was helping me more, to be fair. And then eventually got to uni, and my first choice was social work. I wanted to do social work.
But there's barriers, right?
There's barriers, yeah. So I passed the application process and interview process, and then got my place. And then they're like, oh, actually, we've just discovered you've got a criminal record, right? And they're like, you can't be a social worker. So I was like, oh, my second backup choice was criminology. So then I went and that's a big another talk for another time, which was like the discrimination.
Navigating higher education.
Higher education. Because that's like, I've been studying with GCSEs with 16-year-olds. But now I'm too much of a risk to study with 18-plus-year-olds in higher education. I was like, how does that even make sense?
That's a whole other topic.
So yeah, I had a bit of a battle with UCAS and other people on that front.
So at this moment when you get to uni and now you're gonna meet face to face, talk us through that moment.
Do you know what? Because you've asked me a similar question earlier, which was like shell shock, and it is similar to when I found out that I was being arrested for murder, to walking in that door and seeing them face to face and having a conversation with them, even though I already felt like I knew them, but I only knew them through mediation and letters. And they'd been such a big part of my life in terms of my motivation and who I'd already become by that point, but I still hadn't even met them. So it was just like weird. But then walking into that room, I just remember like looking at the door and just being like, I'm actually going to do this. Because obviously we come from a place where like people have bad intentions, you know what I mean? If people cause you harm and eye for an eye and all that kind of like, all sorts of stuff was running through my head. I was like, you know, this is a setup, you know what I mean? Start getting all paranoid, right? All those whole thoughts start coming back. So, But I knew, the practitioners had managed that safely. Everyone was in it for the right reasons. We'd come so far, 2.5 years. It was the right thing and the right time to do it. And what they wanted to do from a face-to-face meeting was to be able to do the same things again. Express, not dwell on the impact that it had and continues to have, but to be able to say it to my face, to be able to look me in the eye, tell me the harm that it caused, and also tell me more about their son, James. What he liked doing, the things he was interested in, the life that he had, do you know what I mean? Just like all that stuff. I was just taking it all in. And then, it was difficult.
This is like a massive journey you've been on, and with the support of your victim's family now at that moment, what was it like carrying all of that and still carrying all of that? What is that like?
If I'm going to be, obviously I am, like I try to be 100% honest all the time. There's been difficulties in terms of, because I still don't know if I can always look at myself in the mirror and be proud, which was that earlier goal I referenced.
I was going to ask you about that. Can you do that now?
Some days I can, and then other days, and it's just because I sometimes I'm in regular therapy, which is a good thing, and if you can access therapy and you've got the means to, I would encourage doing it. But yeah, like I learned a lot from that, and I resisted going into therapy for a long time, just based on pure like motivation to change other people, motivation to help society, to try and give back, and this it felt, sometimes it has felt like being on a treadmill of like trying to fix the world, trying to help other people, feeling as if that's going to make me love myself more. But that's not. The more people I help, the more good I do in the world. Like, it's never going to make me love myself more, because I'm never going to get that. Even if I get all the validation in the world, it's not going to make me love myself anymore. It has to come from me. I have to really, like, truly want to respect myself and love myself and practice self-care. And sometimes I haven't got that balance right.
Do you feel like you're worthy now?
The right answer is yes. The right answer is yes. We are all worthy. We are all worthy of our own love and of our own backing and our own care. But there are days when I don't. And on those days, I have to practice what I preach, which is to be self-aware, to be open, to ask for help, to be reflective, journal, do art, like find ways in which you can express that, so you're not bottling it up, or you're not avoiding, or you're not getting frustrated, or being snappy, or whatever it is, how it all starts to, like, those signs of where you're not backing yourself, or you're not looking after yourself, and you are burning the candle at both ends, or whatever that looks like for you. So that's when it's just trying to be more aware. And the other thing is, what I did is I did this journey to a certain degree on my own. I like locked off all my old friends, like I've become a dad and self-isolated, and like didn't have like the peer friends and social
that peer support
necessarily, that peer network, which is part of what this podcast is hopefully doing as well. It's like bringing more people together, people with similar experiences, so that they can kind of support each other and
build a community. Yeah, man.
That's like what I'd say is like one of the most important things if people are gonna successfully reintegrate back into the community, is feel that they have another community that's got their back for the right reasons.
We know mental health is a massive part of your journey, and we have touched on certain aspects of it. But is there anything else that you wanted to talk to us about that journey, that the feeling, or where you're even at now with your victims' parents?
me, Joan, and David, we message each other on WhatsApp and just like I still keep them updated with what I'm doing, and they'd send me messages back supporting me still and getting involved wherever they can, but also reminding me that I'm not doing it for them anymore, and that I'm doing it for me.
How does that make you feel?
It's good. It's good and humbling. But again, it goes back to that. I'm my own biggest critic. Doesn't matter like if like every tabloid newspaper tries to cancel me tomorrow, like I do that to myself. You know, and that's the work that I have to do in terms of managing my mental health, is recognizing why I'm doing what I'm doing. You know, even though it all comes from a good place, it's not always been sustainable. And it's just, and that expectation of myself to kind of like always do more, always achieve more, always have more impact, always help more people, you know, and like giving myself a break at times, right? That's like, and they kind of remind me that I need to do that, and that it's not sustainable, it's not healthy. And the other people even watching this podcast are like, well, of course you should never forget what you've done. Do you know what I mean? But I don't. Like, that's part of the.
But still, you obviously to have some sort of norm to move forward.
To move forward, you cannot live in the past, and you cannot, and that's what I'm moving forward. But at the same time, I'm always being reminded of the past, and that's the kind of the one of the dilemmas of which I haven't really spoke about honestly with anybody else, right? But that is the kind of. But I just want to be real about it, because there'll be other applications in which people can apply it to their lives, right? And we can't hope for a better past. You can't
change it
because you can't change it, but you can turn your mess into a message, but you can't stay stuck in the message.
You know, you said they reminded you, David and John, right? Reminded you that now you're doing it for you.
Yeah.
Have they forgiven you?
I haven't had this conversation with them for a while, and it's one of those. It's not one of those questions that I kind of ask them every time I see them. But the last time it was asked, the last time it was asked, it was actually on Good Morning Britain a few weeks ago. Joan was asked, and she said yes. She's forgiven me, and I kind of already knew that she'd forgiven me because she said it before. And David, obviously we don't have that kind of conversation as regular, but he has, as far as I'm aware, his the last time I was aware of it, his stance was that he doesn't forgive me, but at the same time he has no animosity towards me, and he is grateful for everything that I've done. It's just more of a principle thing that he can't forgive me for it. But he's not eating up with the anger the same as he was before, to quote him directly. And we worked together, and still talk, and I share my ideas. And I have lots of wacky ideas, right? And some of them they'll say, not sure about that one or the name of that one, but you know, like, and they're a useful, vital relationship and sounding board. And
having said that, do you forgive yourself?
I think, like, if I was to like look at the way I've behaved and the relationship that I've had with myself, not with everybody else in the world, the answer will probably be no. But in recent times, Yes. So, yes, I forgive myself. I strive to continue forgiving myself. For other, not just that one thing either, just like all the kind of, we've all done bad things, we've all hurt people, we've all fallen below our own expectations. But we are all more than our mistakes, and we are all more than the worst choice we've made. And no good. I can't do any good in the world. I can't be a good dad. I can't do any good in the world if I'm not good in myself. And that is the most important thing.
So with all the work that you do and everything you have done and what you're going to do in the future, what message are you trying to project with the work you do?
I think it's that what I just said then really is that a lot of the work I do is about communication, it's about relationships and cultures, and how we create better, healthier cultures and relationships. But the most important one is the most important relationship is the one that we have with ourselves. And so although I've not always been directly going on about mental health, I have always been talking about relationships, the way we communicate with each other, the way we understand it, ourselves and other people. That will create a more peaceful world. That will create a less violent society, and that will repair. If we do the work on ourselves, we will repair the harm and prevent the harm in the future.
A lot of people can relate to that.
And I rate you too for doing plenty of work on yourselves as well.
Trying, man, every day.
Every day
trying.
And I had a recent. I've got a couple of like coaches, mentors, and a therapist, right? But one of them was like, this was really helpful, so I thought I'll share it. It might be helpful for other people or listeners. And it was that, have you ever heard the story of the Cherokee?
No.
So the story of the Cherokee is there was a Cherokee. Do you know what a Cherokee is? Like an old, like tribal, indigenous person, right? Like a senior figure in those communities. And he was a granddad. And he was having this conversation. He could have been with his granddaughter or grandson, right? And he was having the conversation. I'm paraphrasing here. And he was having this conversation, and he was telling his grandson or daughter about this war that's going on inside everyone, right? And he was like, it's between two wolves. And there's the dark wolf, and the dark wolf represents jealousy, envy, anger, hate, all those other maladaptive, toxic bad character traits, right? Things that will force us to do things we don't really want to do or act impulsively. And then you've got compassion, the good wolf or the light wolf, which was the wolf of joy and hope and compassion and empathy, right? And there's this massive war going on between them, and the grandchild's like, what? So who's going to win between them two? Like, who's going to win the battle? And he said, and the granddad says, the wolf we choose to feed. And I was like, and the hardest thing in the world is to choose the thought you want to have or the emotion you want to lean into, but it's also the easiest thing in the world at the same time. Like literally, life is about an accumulation of loads and loads of really tiny little choices, and some of those choices are unconscious. And one thing that I've been trying to do is like be really intentional about every single choice and where that choice is coming from, whether it's the light wolf or the dark wolf. And the thing to remember is that anger and jealousy and other envy or whatever it is, you can't starve that wolf either. They still both need to be nourished, right? So it's about finding the balance. And obviously you want a healthier, good wolf, living a life on, empathy and compassion and love and how that's going to manifest in your life. But that's what I'm using at the moment as like an analogy about every choice that I make, what wolf am I feeding? And if I'm feeding the right wolf, then it's going to be the right choice. But at times I've neglected the wolf, the my good wolf, right? And no one can afford to not feed the good wolf. And if you keep feeding that other wolf, it will lead you in all sorts of dark places.
The wolf you choose to feed.
Thank you so much for joining us today and for that added advice tip that you're using at the moment. Yeah, it's been amazing to have you with us, so thank you.
No, thanks a lot.
What we like to do on Life After Prison is signpost organisations that can help people that are, leaving prison or in prison now. But first of all, I just wanted to ask if there's any organisations you want to shout out.
Gosh, there's probably too many to name, and I'll probably
give us your top 3.
So at the Longford Trust, I'm a Longford Trust scholar. They help me fight for my place at university. They award scholarships and mentors to people who've come out of custody or that are still in custody to help study. So big ratings to them. They've helped me a lot. The Forgiveness Project, they're an organisation that shares stories of restorative narratives to counter the usual stories that we hear about revenge and retaliation and eye for an eye that we hear in the media and on the streets and in our communities. So big shout out to the Forgiveness Project for the work that they're doing in countering that narrative and sharing more hopeful stories of redemption and restorative narratives. And then I'm working with 3 Pillars at the moment. They're a sports-based rugby 8-week program in prisons that also offer sports leadership qualifications to people in custody. And the work that they do is just, great. I've seen it firsthand. They've been in one prison for 6 years, and I can see all the peer mentors helping the new groups, and it's just like building this community in the prison. And then Common Ground Justice, who I'm now a founding member of, trying to find common ground in the public and share more stories and connect more people to facilitate a healthier conversation around justice and the type of justice system that we all want as a public that repairs the harm, puts victims first, and has good value for money for the taxpayer, and all the other things that we want out of our justice system, and creating a roadmap for people to join that community. And yeah, hopefully if there's anybody that wants to collaborate with me, I'm a freelancer, so I deliver training in restorative practices, mentoring, I consult on new programs.
What's your website?
Also, jacobdunne.co.uk.
Boom.
Amazing. Thank you. Is that where people can find you best?
Yeah, that's where people, and on socials, I'm at Jacob Freeman with 3 E's. And Freeman is my kind of vision, I guess, to be being free, not literally free, but spiritually free, emotionally free, financially free. That's something that I'm kind of like aiming towards doing. And so for anyone that's in prison, you may not be physically free, but you can aspire to be free in different ways.
Facts.
And yeah, listen, big up to Prison Radio as well. Big up to National Prison Radio.
Come on.
And yeah, thanks a lot again for having me.
Oh, that's amazing. Jacob, thank you so much. We're going to shout out one more organisation, and then we're going to put them all in the show notes. So check them out there, including Jacob's socials and website. Clean Break, they're a theatre company working with women affected by the criminal justice system. So yeah, that'll be in there as well.
All right, so Jacob, obviously we knew you was coming on, right? So what we did is we asked our followers on social media a question, right? So, question, and we'll come to you as well, but obviously we spoke about it already. So we asked our followers, if your life was a play, what would the name of the play be? So I'll ask you first. If your life was a play, what would the name of your play be?
The Wolf We Feed.
I like that.
The Wolf We Feed.
That was good.
That's cold. And that's cold
as well,
isn't it?
Maybe that's the next one.
What would yours be, Jules, on the spot now?
Oh, why'd you do that? What would yours be?
Good question. Yeah.
Jacob smashed it. Yeah. Look at us.
No, mine would be From the Block to Buckingham Palace.
Nice.
Nice.
Mine would be, it sounds a bit cliche, but it would be Trust the Journey You're On.
Trust the journey you're on. Big up yourself, Jules.
Nice.
I'm going to share a few of the responses we got from this question.
Let's go.
And let's see how we feel about some of the names. Yeah. So someone said, one word, migraine.
I actually remember reading these, and when I read them, I was like, okay, these are
That's
these
a
are funny.
sick name,
That's
though.
a sick
These are
name.
good.
Migraine.
It is.
My
for
life
real.
summed up in a play. Migraine. I heard that. Innit? Big up yourself for sending that in.
Yeah, a lot of headaches over here.
Yeah, I
Organising
heard that. I heard that. Someone else said, shattered to strong.
I like that. I like that.
Shattered to strong. Innit? Roll with it.
Roll with it.
Just roll with it.
Roll with it. Come on.
Innit?
I'm with that one.
Yeah.
Roll with it. This one's a bit more. Fatherhood let me down, only to save me.
Oh, that's deep.
Fatherhood let me down, only to save me.
Wow.
It's cold.
Yes, and please keep getting in touch with us, guys. When we're firing out questions on our socials, keep your answers coming in, and we like to keep these conversations going, especially with you guys. So you can do that by Instagramming us or messaging us on X at AfterPrisonPod. Our TikTok is Life After Prison Pod. Our email is podcast@prison.radio. And if you're inside, we will give you the number at the end of the show. So please get in touch with us then. So yeah, Jacob, again, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
No, that was powerful, man. That was dope. The wolf we choose to feed.
It's great. And thank you to you guys for listening or watching. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, take care.